Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at something we all use every day, but probably don't think too much about. Memory.
Oh yeah, memory is super important for basically everything we do.
Exactly. But for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at memory through a philosophical lens.
Right, how can we actually be sure that our memories are accurate? And how do they contribute to our knowledge about the world?
Big questions. And to help us unpack all of this, we're diving into the Stanford Encyclopedia Philosophy's entry on, what's it called again?
Epistemological problems of memory.
Oh, yeah. Epistemological problems. That sounds kind of intimidating.
Well, it's basically about how we know things like what makes a belief justified, and how can we be sure we're not just making stuff up based on faulty memories.
Okay, so it's about whether we can actually trust our memories to give us reliable knowledge about the past.
Exactly. And it turns out that memory is way more complicated than we often realize.
I'm already intrigued. So where do we even begin with all of this?
Well, one of the first things we need to address is that memory isn't just one thing. It's a whole system of different ways of remembering.
Okay, so it's not just about remembering where I left my keys or what I had for breakfast.
Right. There are actually different types of memory. We have declarative memory, which is all about facts and events that we can consciously recall.
So things like knowing the capital of France or remembering your last birthday party.
Exactly. And then there's non-declarative memory, which is more about skills and habits like riding a bike or playing an instrument.
Ah, so that's how I can still kind of remember how to ride a bike, even though I haven't done it in years.
Yep. For this deep dive, though, we're going to be focusing specifically on declarative memory, and particularly the kind that deals with our personal experience.
About personal experiences.
Yeah, what we call episodic memory, those memories that make up our unique life story.
Okay, so episodic memory, got it. But how do we even begin to figure out how these personal memories can help us know things? It seems like we need some kind of philosophical framework to make sense of all this.
You're right. And luckily, philosophers have developed a few helpful tools for thinking about knowledge and justification.
Ooh, philosophical tools?
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
One of the big ones is the distinction between foundationalism and coherentism.
Okay, more isms. Lay it on me. What are those all about?
So foundationalists believe that some beliefs are self-evident. They're the foundation for all our other beliefs. And they think certain types of memory can be foundational too.
So if I vividly remember my first day of school, that memory itself could be the foundation for my belief that, yes, I did go to school.
Exactly. You don't need any other evidence to justify that belief. The memory itself is enough.
Makes sense. So what about coherentism? How is that different?
Coherentists believe that beliefs are justified if they fit together logically like a puzzle.
So it's not about individual memories being perfect, but more about how well they all connect and support each other.
Exactly. It's about the overall coherence of our belief system.
But hold on a second. We've been talking about how memories can be fuzzy, unreliable even. So how can they be a solid foundation for knowledge if they're constantly being constructed and reconstructed?
That's the million-dollar question. And to answer it, we need to dive into another philosophical debate. Internalism versus externalism.
Okay, even more isms. But I'm ready to bring on the philosophy.
All right, so internalism is all about what's going on inside your mind. If a belief feels like a real memory and you don't have any internal reasons to doubt it, then you're justified in believing it.
So it's about trusting your gut feeling about a memory.
Pretty much. But externalists are more focused on what's happening outside your mind. They might say that even if a memory feels super real to you, if your memory is generally unreliable, then that impacts how justified you are in believing it.
So it's not just about how vivid the memory feels, but also about whether your memory is generally trustworthy. Do you have a good track record when it comes to remembering things accurately?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Externalists believe that factors outside your immediate awareness can affect the justification of your beliefs, even if you don't consciously realize it.
Okay, so internalism is like trusting your gut feeling about a memory, while externalism is more about looking at the evidence and the reliability of your memory process as a whole.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. But I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, you have no idea. There are so many more mind-bending problems that arise when we start thinking about memory and knowledge.
Okay, well, I'm ready to dive deeper. Let's see what other philosophical rabbit holes we can uncover.
So like you were saying before, how can we be sure that we're not just making things up based on faulty memories?
Yeah, that's what's been bugging me this whole time.
Well, one of the trippiest problems is what philosophers call the problem of forgotten evidence.
Forgotten evidence. Okay, I think I've definitely experienced that before. When you walk into a room And you went in there for a reason,
Yeah.
but you can't for the life of you remember what it was.
Exactly. You have this belief, but you've completely forgotten the evidence that led you to that belief in the first place.
It's so frustrating. But it also makes me wonder if we can't even remember why we believe something.
Yeah.
How can we possibly be sure it's true?
That's the challenge, right? And philosophers have come up with a bunch of different ways to try and address this, like remember externalism.
Yeah, you were saying externalists are more focused on what's going on outside our minds, like the reliability of our memory process over time.
Right. So they might say it's okay to still believe something, even if you've forgotten the evidence, as long as the process that led you to that belief in the first place was reliable.
So like if I'm generally good at remembering things and I have a strong feeling that I put my keys in my purse, maybe it's okay to trust that feeling, even if I can't recall the specific moment I did it.
Exactly. It's like trusting the system even if you can't retrace your steps.
That makes sense to me. But what about internalists? How would they deal with this problem of forgotten evidence?
Well, internalists are all about the current contents of your mind, right?
Yeah, they're like, if it feels real, it must be real.
Haha, right. So they might argue that as long as it feels like a real memory to you, then you're justified in believing it even if you can't remember the specific evidence.
Okay, so even if I can't remember why I believe something, if it feels like a genuine memory, then it's still justified from an internalist perspective. I guess that makes sense in a way.
And there's actually a specific term they use for this, seeming to recollect.
Seeming to recollect.
Yeah, it's not just about having a vague belief. It's about that strong feeling of actually remembering something, even if you can't recall all the details.
Okay, I see the difference, but isn't that a bit flimsy? Like, what if I'm seeming to recollect something that never actually happened?
That's a great point. And it leads us to another tricky problem, the problem of stored beliefs.
Stored beliefs. Okay, this is getting interesting.
Think about all the beliefs you're not actively remembering at any given moment. Like you believe the earth is round, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it myself, but
Haha. Right. But you're probably not consciously thinking about that belief all the time. It's just stored somewhere in your memory, ready to be accessed if needed.
yeah, I guess you're right. I have tons of beliefs like that just sitting there in my mental filing cabinet. But what's the problem with that?
The problem is, how can those beliefs be justified if we're not actively thinking about them? Internalists have a bit of a tough time with this one.
Yeah, because internalism is all about what's going on in your mind right now. So if I'm not actively remembering that the earth is round, how can that belief be justified?
Some internalists might argue that there's a subtle difference between simply having a belief passively stored in memory and being disposed to recollect it.
Disposed to recollect, what does that mean?
It means you're confident that you could remember the reasons for your belief if you really tried, even if you're not actively thinking about them right now.
So even if I can't rattle off all the evidence for why the earth is round off the top of my head, because I know I could come up with those reasons if I needed to, that's good enough for an internalist.
Yeah, that's one way they try to get around this problem. Of course, externalists have an easier time with stored beliefs.
Yeah, because for externalists, it's all about the reliability of the process that formed the belief in the first place, not whether you're actively thinking about it right now.
Exactly. If the process was reliable, the belief remains justified whether you're consciously aware of it or not.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got forgotten evidence and stored beliefs. Are there any other memory mind benders that we need to tackle?
Oh yeah, there's one more that's a real doozy, forgotten defeaters.
Forgotten defeaters. That sounds ominous.
It kind of is. So a defeater is basically a reason to doubt a belief. And a forgotten defeater, well, a reason to doubt a belief that you've forgotten.
Okay, I'm following so far, but can you give me an example? My brain is starting to hurt a little.
Sure. Let's say you believe that your friend is a really good driver, but then one day you see them get into a fender bender.
Oh, no.
Right, that fender bender is a defeater for your belief that they're a good driver. It provides evidence that contradicts your belief.
Totally. Okay, so what happens if I later forget about that fender bender? Does that mean I'm back to being justified in believing they're a good driver?
That's the million-dollar question. And it turns out there's no easy answer. Some philosophers would say absolutely not. Forgetting a defeater shouldn't magically make your belief more justified.
So even though I've forgotten the fender bender, my belief that my friend is a good driver is still on shaky ground. Like there's still that evidence out there, even if I'm not aware of it anymore.
That's one way to look at it, but other philosophers have a different take on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They might say that if you no longer have any reasons to doubt a belief, Even if you've simply forgotten those reasons, then continuing to believe it might actually be the most rational thing to do.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying that forgetting something can actually make a belief more justified. How does that even work?
It's a pretty radical idea, but it basically comes down to this. If you have no current reasons to doubt a belief, then you're justified in holding on to it, even if there were reasons to doubt it in the past that you've since forgotten. It's all about your current state of knowledge, not about the entire history of your beliefs.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So in a way, forgetting can actually be a good thing. Like it can clear out all the mental clutter and allow us to focus on the beliefs that are most likely to be true based on what we currently know.
That's one way to interpret it. Of course, not everyone agrees with this view. There's a lot of debate about whether and how forgetting can affect justification, but it's definitely a fascinating question to consider.
It is. And you know what? I'm starting to see how all these problems with memory connect back to those bigger philosophical frameworks we talked about earlier: foundationalism, coherentism, internalism, externalism. It's all like a giant web of interconnected ideas.
Exactly. And it gets even more complicated when we start to factor in time, because the question of whether your past matters for whether your current beliefs are justified is a whole other can of worms.
Ooh, time travel in the realm of memory. Sign me up. All right, so we've been talking about how tricky it can be to figure out if our memories are reliable sources of knowledge, but now you're saying that time also plays a role. That sounds like a whole new level of complexity.
It is, and it brings us to these two main approaches to thinking about justification: time slice theories and historical theories.
Okay, time slice theories and historical theories. Those sound pretty intense. What are those all about?
Well, imagine you're watching a movie, right? And you pause it at a specific frame. That frame is like a snapshot of a particular moment. That's what time slice theories focus on. They say that only the present moment matters for whether a belief is justified. So what you believe in the past or any evidence you might have forgotten, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you believe right now based on the evidence you have right now.
So if I'm trying to decide whether it's reasonable to believe my friend is a good driver, a time slice theorist would say, forget about that fender bender you saw last week. What do you believe right now based on what's going on in your head at this moment?
Exactly. Time slice theories are all about the present moment. It's like taking a snapshot of your mind and saying, okay, this is what determines whether your beliefs are justified.
Okay. I can see how that approach kind of simplifies things.
Yeah.
But what about historical theories? I'm guessing they take a different view?
They do. Historical theorists believe that the past matters, too. They say that all your past experiences, even the stuff you've forgotten, can affect how justified your beliefs are right now.
So even if I've completely forgotten about that fender bender, a historical theorist would say it's still relevant because it was part of the process that led me to my current belief about my friend's driving skills.
Right. They believe that our beliefs are like shaped by our experiences over time, and they think that those past experiences continue to have an influence even if we're not consciously remembering them.
This is so trippy. It's like our beliefs are carrying around all this baggage from our past, even if we're not aware of it. So how do these different approaches play out when we're thinking about those specific memory problems we discussed earlier, like forgotten defeaters?
Well, remember that a defeater is basically a reason to doubt something. So a forgotten defeater is a reason to doubt a belief that you no longer remember.
Yeah, that one was really messing with my head.
Well, for a time slice theorist, it's pretty straightforward. They'd say that if you've forgotten the defeater, it's just not relevant anymore. The past is the past. All that matters is your current state of mind. So if you don't currently have any reasons to doubt the belief, then you're justified in believing it.
So it's like a clean slate every moment, like whatever happened before doesn't count.
Kind of like that, yeah. But historical theorists have a tougher time with this. They have to somehow explain how something that happened in the past, like that forgotten defeater, can still affect whether your belief is justified right now, even if you're not consciously aware of it.
So for a historical theorist, even though I forgot the fender bender, it still kind of casts a shadow over my belief about my friend's driving. It's like a ghost from the past haunting my present beliefs.
Uh-huh. I love that analogy. It really captures the idea that our past experiences can continue to influence us even when we're not aware of them.
This is making my brain hurt. But in a good way, I think. Okay, so time is a factor, but what if two people like have the same beliefs and memories right now, but they had totally different experiences in the past? Would their beliefs be equally justified?
That's a great question, and it goes right to the heart of the debate between time slice and historical theories. A time slice theorist would say, of course, if their present mental states are the same, then their beliefs are equally justified. The past doesn't matter. But a historical theorist would probably disagree. They'd say that their past experiences, even the ones they've forgotten, could still be affecting how justified their beliefs are right now.
Wow, so two people could literally be thinking the same thing, but their thoughts could have different levels of justification just because of their unique pasts. That's mind-blowing. It's like the history of a thought can affect its truth value.
It's pretty wild, right? And it shows just how intertwined memory, time, and justification really are.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored different types of memory, tackled some mind-bending philosophical problems, and even ventured into the realm of time travel. Before we wrap up, though, there's one more question that's been nagging at me. Does memory actually preserve justification? Or are we going to end this deep dive with more questions than answers?
Haha, that's a great question, and one that philosophers are still debating. But let's see if we can shed a little light on it before we sign off. First, we need to be clear about what we mean by preservationism. There are actually two main types.
Two types of preservationism. Hey, I'm all ears.
The first type argues that memory can't create justification out of thin air. It can only preserve justification that came from somewhere else, like perception. So if you see a tree with your own eyes and later remember seeing that tree, the justification for your belief comes from the original perception, not the memory itself. The memory is just like a container for that justification.
So the memory isn't really doing any of the work. It's just holding on to the justification that was already there thanks to the original experience.
Right. Now, the opposing view to this kind of preservationism is called generativism. And generativists think that memory can actually create justification even if it wasn't there originally.
So a generativist might say that like a really vivid memory could actually make a belief more justified than it was when it was first formed, even if the memory isn't perfectly accurate.
That's the idea. They think that the act of remembering itself, especially when it involves that strong feeling of seeming to recollect, can actually strengthen justification. But of course, there are lots of people who disagree with this view.
Yeah, I mean, memories can be so unreliable sometimes. So what about that second type of preservationism? How is that different?
The second type is more straightforward. It basically says that if a belief enters your memory with justification, it keeps that justification even if the original evidence is long gone.
So even if I can't remember why I believe something, if I had good reasons to believe it in the past, those reasons still count, even though I can't access them anymore. Like the justification is still attached to the belief, even if I've lost the instruction manual.
Exactly. And this type of preservationism covers both reliabilism, remember the idea that justified beliefs come from reliable cognitive processes, and also epistemic conservatism, which is the view that you're justified in continuing to believe something unless you have a reason to change your mind.
Okay, so two flavors of preservationism. One that says memory can only hold on to justification, not create it, and another that says justification once earned is retained by memory even if we can't remember the original reasons. But something tells me not everyone is on board with this whole preservationism thing. Are there any, like, counter-arguments?
You bet. Lots of folks have problems with both types of preservationism. For the first type, the one about memory not creating justification, one objection is that memory does seem to generate new beliefs all the time, especially when we're reconstructing past events. Like you might remember a conversation and then suddenly realize something you didn't notice at the time.
Right, it's like our memories are always being edited and updated based on our current understanding of the world.
Exactly. And if those new beliefs that are coming from memory are justified, well, that kind of throws a wrench in the idea that memory can only preserve justification. Another criticism is that even if memory can generate justification, maybe it shouldn't be able to generate knowledge. There's a subtle difference there.
So I might be justified in believing something based on a hazy memory, but that doesn't necessarily mean I truly know it. It's like the difference between having a hunch and having rock-solid evidence.
That's a great way to put it. Justification might be a matter of degrees, but knowledge might require something more.
That makes sense. So what about challenges to that second kind of preservationism? The one about memory holding on to justification, even if we forget the original reasons.
One big question is whether time itself, like the passage of time, weakens justification. Even if I still remember a belief, if it's been years since I formed it, does
Yeah.
that make it less justified just because there's been more time for my memory to get things mixed up? I mean, memories fade, details blur. We might even start to combine different events.
Yeah, like the further back in time we go, the less reliable our memories become. So even if preservationism is true, maybe there should be some kind of expiration date on justification.
It's definitely something to think about. Another challenge has to do with what happens when you try to remember something and you just can't. Does that failure to recall actually make your belief less justified than it was before you tried to remember it? If justification is just about having the belief stored in your memory, then it shouldn't matter whether you can successfully access it or not.
Right. If the justification is like baked in, then my inability to remember it shouldn't affect whether it's still there.
Exactly. That's what that second type of preservationism seems to imply. But some argue that if you actively try to remember something and you come up blank, that should weaken your justification because it suggests that the belief isn't as well supported as you thought it was.
So even though I might have a belief stored away in my memory, the act of trying and failing to bring it to mind casts some doubt on whether it's truly justified. It's like if I can't find the file in my mental cabinet, maybe it wasn't as important as I thought it was.
That's a good way to think about it. It really gets to the heart of what it means for a belief to be justified.
Wow, this has been an incredible journey through the world of memory and knowledge. We've explored so many different ideas, and I feel like my brain has expanded like tenfold.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore when it comes to the philosophy of memory.
Well, dear listener, I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the philosophical mysteries of memory. We've covered everything from different types of memory to mind-bending philosophical problems and the ongoing debate about whether and how memory can contribute to knowledge.
And even though we might not have all the answers, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to think more deeply about how your own memories shape your understanding of the world.
So next time you find yourself reminiscing about the past or trying to recall a forgotten detail, take a moment to appreciate the amazing power and complexity of your own memory. It's truly one of the most fascinating aspects of what makes us human.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll finally crack the code and unlock all the secrets of how memory works. But until then, keep those memories flowing and keep those philosophical gears turning.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.